Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so The Last of Us is back April 13th, 2025. Just around the corner.
Yeah, definitely generating buzz again.
And it sounds like a lot of you were thinking about that creepy zombie fungus from the show.
Understandably.
Yeah.
It's a pretty compelling concept.
So that's what we're digging into for this deep dive. You sent over some great sources, news pieces, expert interviews, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And our mission basically is to unpack the science, the real science of fungi, inspired by the show, figure out what's real, what's fiction, and why any of it matters.
Sounds good. It's definitely a topic that grabs people's attention, especially with a story like The Last of Us. And yeah, that zombie fungus idea, it starts with a real group of fungi called Cordyceps.
Cordyceps. Okay, even the name sounds a bit sci-fi, doesn't it? What do these things actually do that's so, well, zombifying?
Well, Cordyceps isn't just one thing, it's a whole group. And they're known for infecting arthropods, insects,
Yeah.
spiders, that kind of thing. But the one that really got the ball rolling for The Last of Us is called Cordyceps unilateralis. Its main target, ants.
Ants. Okay.
And how it works,
Yeah.
it's pretty detailed. And honestly, a little disturbing.
Disturbing. How so? Give us the gory details.
Okay, imagine an ant just doing its ant thing. A tiny Cordyceps spore lands on it.
Right.
This spore gets through the ant's exoskeleton, its hard shell, right? But it doesn't kill it. Not yet. Inside, the fungus grows, kind of like yeast at first, spreading through the body. And then it starts messing with the ant's behavior.
Messing with it how?
The ant stops acting like a normal ant. It leaves the colony, wanders off aimlessly, gets really hyperactive sometimes.
So, like, the fungus is hijacking its brain.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It drives the ant to climb up onto a plant, usually, to a very specific height.
A specific height. Why?
That's the summit disease part. Once it's high enough, the fungus makes the ant bite down, hard, onto a leaf, maybe a twig. And here's the really wild part. The fungus releases chemicals. They actually dissolve the muscle fibers in the ant's jaws.
No way.
Yeah, so the ant is locked there permanently.
That's, wow, incredibly specific. And gruesome. So it's stuck up high. What's the point for the fungus?
That's the key. Reproduction. With the ant fixed in that high up spot, the Cordyceps finishes the job. Consumes the insides, the brain too.
Grim.
Then a stalk grows out, usually right out of the ant's head. It's called the stroma. Now, think of it like the mushroom part.
The fruiting body.
Exactly. And being up high lets the spores drift down, carried by wind or rain, onto more unsuspecting ants below. Starts the whole cycle over again.
Wow. It really is like a tiny horror movie happening down in the leaves. You said Cordyceps unilateralis is the famous one, but are there others? Other real zombie fungi doing weird stuff like this?
Oh, absolutely. The fungal kingdom is, well, it's full of bizarre strategies. You got the zombie cicada fungus, Massospora cicadina.
Zombie cicadas, what do they do?
This one's different. Instead of making the cicada climb and die, Massospora keeps it flying around, active.
Oh, it's infected.
Yeah, even as the fungus is literally eating away its back end and replacing it with a clump of spores.
You're kidding. It's flying around spreading spores from its missing abdomen?
Pretty much. They call it active host transmission. It's quite rare, actually. The cicada is basically a salt shaker of death for other cicadas.
That's a whole other level of creepy. A zombie that doesn't know it's a zombie and is still buzzing around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are others, like Cordyceps sobolifera. It infects cicada nymphs, the young ones underground. It makes them summit, but just below the soil surface. So the spores can still get out above ground.
Clever.
And Cordyceps salginacula, that one only goes after certain social cockroaches and only found so far in Japan's Ryukyu Islands.
So they're really, really specialized then.
Extremely. That's the key takeaway, really. These fungi are highly targeted. They've co-evolved with specific hosts for millions of years. They aren't just generalists.
That specificity is mind-boggling. Okay, let's shift gears to season 2 of the show, the trailer. It looks like infections are spreading through airborne spores this time. That felt different from season 1's tendrils. Is that, like, more scientifically plausible?
It is, actually. As Dr. Jim Cronstad at UBC mentioned in one of the articles, fungi are masters of spore production. That's how many real fungal diseases spread to humans.
Like what, for example?
Like Cryptococcus neoformans. It can cause meningitis, and you get it by inhaling spores. So, yeah, the show moving towards airborne transmission, it does track more closely with how many real human fungal infections work.
Oh. Okay, that makes the whole scenario feel a bit closer to home, I guess. The show also hints that climate change was the trigger, right? That it helped Cordyceps jump to humans. Is there any real science behind warming climates making fungi more dangerous?
Yes, there is. It's a growing area of concern. That Nature paper you sent over, Dr. Cronstadt and colleagues talk about exactly this.
Right.
They suggest a warming climate might be helping fungi like coccidioids that causes valley fever to spread further north. And it might also be linked to the rise of things like Candida auris.
Candida auris. That's the drug-resistant one found in hospitals, isn't it?
That's the one. Really nasty, hard-to-treat infections.
Yeah.
So the idea that a warmer world could, lower the thermal barrier that protects mammals like us from many fungi, it's not just science fiction.
Yeah.
It's a real hypothesis being studied.
So the show's climate change connection isn't totally out of left field.
Not at all. And that same paper mentions a newly discovered fungus, Rhodospordiobulus fluvialis, found in humans.
Never heard of it.
Right, because previously it was only known from the environment, like rivers. Finding it in humans suggests fungi are potentially adapting, maybe finding new niches.
Okay.
And we see this pattern, like with that Coccidioides immedius outbreak back in 2001 at Dinosaur National Monument, valley fever showing up further north than expected. It fits the picture of fungi adapted to warmer climates, potentially expanding their range as things heat up.
That's definitely a bit unsettling. Makes you wonder, could we actually see a human zombie fungus, like in the show, that mind control stuff?
It's a terrifying thought, for sure. But based on what we know now, a human zombie fungus pandemic like that,
Yeah.
it's extremely unlikely. At least, anytime soon.
Okay, phew. That's somewhat reassuring. Why is it so improbable? What's stopping them?
Well, it comes back to that specialization we talked about. Matt Casson, a mycologist over at West Virginia University, really emphasizes this.
Uh-huh.
These fungus-insect relationships, they took millions of years to evolve. They are incredibly fine-tuned.
Right, the specific key for the specific lock idea.
Exactly. For a fungus that's perfectly adapted to hijack an ant's nervous system,
Yeah.
to suddenly be able to do that to a mammal, with our completely different body temperature, our complex immune system, it would need a whole new set of evolutionary tools.
So the jump from ant to human is just massive.
Absolutely enormous. Think about all the steps. Getting past our defenses, surviving our body heat, manipulating our much more complex brains in a specific way, then finding a way to spread. Each step requires major evolutionary innovation. Host jumps, even between closely related insects, are rare. Mammals are a whole different ballgame.
That makes sense. It's not just a small tweak. And Matt Casson mentioned handling hundreds of these zombie insects himself, right? Without any problems.
Yeah, he did. That personal experience really drives home how host-specific these things are. So, while zombie ants are real and, pretty creepy, they aren't coming for us.
Okay, good. So we don't need to stock up on gas masks just yet because of Cordyceps. But are there other fungal threats, real ones we should know about?
Definitely, yeah. While we're safe from becoming clickers, fungi certainly impact human health. We all know the common stuff, right? Athlete's foot, ringworm.
Right.
Annoying, but usually not serious.
Right. Topical creams, mostly.
But there are more serious, invasive fungal diseases. These are a bigger problem, especially for people with weakened immune systems, transplant patients, people with HIV, cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy.
Okay, what kind of diseases are we talking about?
Well, there's Aspergillus fumigatus. It's really common in the environment, in soil, decaying leaves, compost. Most people breathe in spores all the time and are fine. But in vulnerable people, it can get into the lungs, cause pneumonia-like symptoms, even spread elsewhere.
And Cryptococcus. You mentioned that one earlier, causing meningitis.
Exactly. Cryptococcus neoformans, also found in the environment, often associated with bird droppings, again, usually inhaled. It can cause lung infections, but the big danger is if it spreads to the brain and spinal cord, causing meningitis. Symptoms like stiff neck, headache, light sensitivity, and if it's not treated, Cryptococcus meningitis has a very high mortality rate.
Wow. Those sound genuinely serious. But how do you typically get them? Can they spread person to person like in the show?
Generally, no. That's a key difference. Human-to-human transmission of these serious invasive fungal diseases is rare. You usually get them from the environment, breathing in spores from soil dust, contaminated air. Not typically caught from another sick person.
Okay, so not contagious like a cold or the flu or, well, the zombie fungus in the game. You mentioned outbreaks earlier, though, like at that paper mill.
Right. Outbreaks can happen when a group of people gets exposed to a large amount of fungal spores from a specific source. That blastomyces outbreak in Michigan linked to the paper mill. Over 100 people got sick.
What's blastomyces?
Another fungus found in soil and decaying wood, mostly in certain parts of North America, causes lung infections primarily. And The coccidioids outbreak at Dinosaur National Monument affecting that archaeological team again, exposure to contaminated soil or dust in an area where the fungus lives. And as we said, that one highlights the potential link to climate change, with these fungi maybe showing up in new places.
It's definitely sobering, safe from fictional zombies, but real fungal threats exist. But it's not all doom and gloom with fungi, is it? I feel like they do important stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. Critically important. We focus on the scary stuff because of the show, but the vast majority of fungi are either harmless or incredibly beneficial. Essential, even.
Like what?
Well, first off, they're nature's recyclers, the main decomposers. They break down dead plants, animals, return nutrients to the soil. Without fungi, we'd literally be buried in dead stuff.
Okay, point taken. No decomposition. Yikes.
And doing that, they lock up huge amounts of carbon, acting as vital carbon sinks. Super important for the climate.
Right. Beyond decomposition.
Oh, yeah. Humans use them for all sorts of things. We're exploring fungi to make new materials, strong, lightweight stuff, maybe even for building things in space.
Fungal bricks in space.
Potentially. And, of course, food. Yeast makes bread rise, ferments beer and wine. Many mushrooms are delicious edibles. And fungi are key ingredients in lots of plant-based foods now, like vegan burgers.
Ah, right. And what about medicine? I've definitely seen Cordyceps itself sold as, like, a health supplement.
You have. Cordyceps is cultivated,
Yeah.
used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries, and sold as supplements today. Claimed benefits range from boosting energy to improving immunity.
Does it work?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
While it has a long history of use, the hard scientific evidence for most of those health claims in humans, it's pretty limited right now. More research is needed.
Interesting. So maybe not a miracle cure-all, but culturally significant? What about other fungi in medicine? That seems like a bigger deal.
Oh, it's huge. Revolutionary. Think about penicillin, the first antibiotic.
Came from mold, right? A fungus?
Exactly. Penicillium fungus. It changed medicine forever.
Yeah.
And fungi continue to be a treasure trove. Cholesterol-lowering drugs, the statins, many originated from fungi. Anti-rejection drugs for organ transplants. Cyclosporine comes from a fungus.
Even psilocybin.
Magic mushrooms. Right. The psychoactive compound in them. It's being seriously studied now for treating depression, anxiety, PTSD. So yeah, fungi are like these incredible, often overlooked chemical factories. Unsung heroes of medicine, you could say.
Unsung heroes. I like that. Definitely shifts the perspective from just the creepy, crawly stuff. And thinking about alcohol from yeast and psilocybin, isn't that fungi kind of influencing our behavior too, in a way?
That's a really fascinating way to look at it. Yeast, a single-celled fungus, makes alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Humans have cultivated yeast for thousands of years specifically to get that alcohol.
Uh-huh.
So from the yeast perspective,
Mhm.
you could argue humans are propagating it, ensuring its survival and spread, all because we like the chemical it produces. Who's manipulating whom, right?
Yeah. Maybe we're the ones being domesticated by the beer fungus. That's funny. And you mentioned earlier, even ants have ways to fight back against cordyceps.
They do. Social immunity. Ants aren't helpless. They can groom spores off each other. And if an ant seems infected, they've been observed carrying it far away from the nest, quarantining it, essentially.
Wow, self-quarantine in the ant world.
Yep. It's a constant evolutionary arms race down there. Pathogens evolve ways to infect. Hosts evolve ways to defend.
This has been, wow, such an eye-opening look into fungi. It's just incredible how complex they are. From these like hyper-specialized insect mind controllers that sparked a whole fictional apocalypse
Right.
to being totally essential for ecosystems and, giving us life-saving drugs, it definitely puts that Last of Us trailer and the whole concept in a much richer context.
It really does. And, for our listeners who want that quick but thorough understanding, the key things to take away are the zombie fungus is inspired by real but highly specific insect parasites.
Right. Ants, not people.
Exactly. And while a human pandemic, like the show, is fiction, climate change is potentially shifting the landscape for real fungal threats.
Mm-hmm.
But also, don't forget the huge beneficial role fungi play. They're not just villains.
Absolutely. So as we wait for Sem 2, maybe with a little less primal fear and a bit more scientific curiosity, let's appreciate this hidden kingdom all around us. Which leads to a final thought. Considering this constant evolution, the arms race between hosts and pathogens, plus our changing planet, what other surprising roles could fungi play in the future? What's the real balance we should be thinking about between the sci-fi horror and the actual complex, vital world of fungi? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.